Okay, to wrap things up tonight, my topic is concerning the state of the video game industry. There was a very long report put out by Aphelion. If you don't know who Aphelion is, they are a venture capital firm. And Matthew Ball, who wrote this, is one of the principal investors and CEOs of the company. He's contributed to The Economist magazine. He's a senior advisor at KKR, which is a private equity company outside of his company. And I'll have the report available in the show notes if you want to peruse the 231-page presentation. But I'm going to summarize it tonight and try to get the key points out, which begs the question, how will the gaming industry survive over the next decade, as there are some serious issues that might affect how we game in the future? So let's start with the data, right? If you start with the data spans that we're talking about here are from 2011 to 2024. Back in 1990, video gaming industry accumulated total sales of about $30 billion a year, and that's respectable. But today, it's over $200 billion in video game sales. I don't know if that includes your subscription services and all that, but I'm sure it's some kind of an accumulation. They say video game sales has never been better from 2011 to 2020, as it grew 105%. Compare that with the U.S. GDP over that same time, which only grew at 51%. This is unprecedented in the gaming industry. And part of this was due to the COVID high, which, most of us had to stay home and video games were a great distraction, if anything. But the data reveals that the COVID years only reinforced an already fast-growing trend. The report mentions several factors that made video gaming very strong throughout this period, other than COVID. The first was the popularity of mobile gaming. Billions of new players, new hours per day to play. It was accessible to everybody. The second one was the free-to-play model, right? That was introduced. This reduced the barriers to playing, and it created that whale in a new way to monetize games going forward. Third, live service games. This single-handedly lifted the engagement and monetization ceiling for all games out there. Fourth was the popularity of battle royales. This game model created the highest grossing games in history and expanded the cultural appeal and range of the game. Thanks, Fortnite. Fifth was cross-platform gaming. This expanded every multiplayer's game's social path and thus the appeal and playtime and spend on the game. 6, battle passes. This was a brand new monetization model that increased the paying share of our free-to-play players out there and enticed more players to actually spend money in the game. 7, social gaming. This led to the, quote, non-gamers to take up video gaming to connect with friends and family. 8, and the last one that I'm going to mention tonight is social gaming services. YouTube, Twitch, Discord, and others that created this new meta layer that enriched gaming and aided game discovery and strengthened social play. Now, those of you in the Discord probably are wondering now how I came up with the question of the week, because a lot of those factors were part of the answers to the question of the week, and I'll get to that part before we leave tonight. So according to this report, those were all the factors that made up what gaming is today, which is very strong, by the way. I don't want to discount that fact. It happens when an industry grows by leaps and bounds. What happens when that happens? And when the domestic gross product of the U.S. is surpassed? Well, Wall Street begins to pay attention, right? And what happens is investors start investing in gaming industry. 2021 was a big year for outside investing in gaming studios and publishers. 2019 sales, $151 billion. 2020, $182 billion. 2021, $191 billion. And in 2022, it actually fell to $182 billion. And if you remember, this is when all those layoffs occurred in the industry. The industry had constricted, which was in part due to the cost of capital going up. Corporate loans, cheap interest wasn't cheap anymore. But don't get me wrong, the industry today is still $30 billion greater than the pre-COVID year, so it's very strong. 2023 numbers, $193 billion. 2024 stayed the same. Its first plateau in a decade. So what happens when investors see a plateau? They move on to other industries that aren't plateauing, hence the problem we face today. Investor spending on video game content is down 77% over its peak. So in response, gaming company CEOs are cutting overhead in order to show profitability so that the investors aren't scared off. The only problem with this is that it's only a Band-Aid to a bigger problem, and the CEOs, I think, know it. This report also states that investors believe that these factors that I mentioned earlier have been played out, and that developers are now desperate and are using gimmicks and other things to get their game to get attention. From the trends I'm seeing, it seems that investors are moving more into the AI industry these days. So what does all this immense data mean to us gamers, right? Well, I hate to get negative here, but the real truth today is that we, as gamers, are not the customer anymore for gaming studios. The investors are. We are merely the mechanism by which the gaming companies out there can keep their investors happy. It's sad but true to all but maybe a few independent studios, and we mentioned Clair Obscura tonight. Baldur's Gate 3 is another mention there, how they've kind of condemned this $80 price tag that's been thrown around lately. There's exceptions, but that's not really what worries me about a future in gaming. I think once the greed from investors and upper management wanes, studios are going to have to revert back to what keeps them in business. And that's us, the players. It's already happening as investors now see the gaming industry as mature, which is not the word you want to hear as an investor. So the thing that worries me about the next decade of the gaming industry is the fact that gaming competes with so many other areas in the leisure arena. It's been reported that we spend 1.4 million years every day on social media. Think about that. I've realized that creating games that can keep the attention of its player base is not ever going to compete with TikTok, which brings you right there on their platform, and YouTube is right there with them, and they don't let you get off. It's very, very addictive the way they have it set up. Independent studios that have opened since 2019 are having to close due to the lack of money available to fully fund their games from publishers. The would-be growth engines that they are talking about that might save us: cloud gaming, VR and AR, subscriptions, esports and esports betting, and new game genres. That's their hope, but they're not really driving any revenue or growth right now, let alone creating their own market leaders. But we have other challenges that we're dealing with right now. I'm going to show you guys the screen here. Sorry, bear with me here. I'm going to pull this up. Here are the factors that we're dealing with now, and hopefully you guys can see us on stream. It's going to be a little delayed. I apologize, but this is what we're dealing with now, and this is the reason why our gaming industry is in trouble. The end of mobile user growth, stagnant console install bases, the growth in foreign developers, the rise of social video, foreign-focused growth, worsening discovery, the black hole games, Call of Duty, Fortnite, the top 5 games for consoles and the top 5 for PC. Rising user acquisition cost, rising development cost, reductions in game sampling, strengthening production timelines, app stores closing, and what we talked about tonight with the $80 game, deflationary pricing. I mean, if you think about it, if you adjust, we talked about this last week, Kingsley, if you adjust for inflation, games should be much more than what they are right now. The games have been the same price, just like I mentioned with my mowing service, for decades. And the big one I was worried about is this one, the fear of failure rates. This is why the studios like Sony right now are rethinking Marathon and taking away all their dollars that they were going to spend on marketing. The fear of failure is huge when it comes to the future of our gaming industry. Now, I'm actually thinking that Microsoft may be one of the few companies out there that might be trying to compete with this new everything is an Xbox campaign they've been pulling out everywhere. Accessibility to gaming might be our saving grace in the next decade. And as much as I've been against the Game Pass program, maybe this is the way. Maybe I've been blind to it. Some other statistics I pulled from this report that the number of gamers have actually decreased, but the number of hours played per player has increased. Hence why our industry is still very strong. The entertainment industry, I believe they're having the same problem at the moment. How many Gen Zers are going to a movie theater? How many are watching things on a TV anymore? Some other bright spots, the fact that more games are being made from countries like China and Korea. They're starting to enter into the market, and the fact that PC gaming is becoming so popular. But they have potential new engines that they say that might turn our gaming industry around. I just want to share those real quick here. I'm going through the presentation, by the way. I've got all the thumbnails to it. Page 228. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Non-core markets. Maturation of local developers. Content should create local spending growth. The UGC platforms, this is your sharing platforms like TikTok and YouTube and all of that, they're still surging, onboarding millions to video games while diversifying into new experience and formats. Social game services continue to grow in scale and engagement functionality while driving even greater game discovery. The Switch 2, that's a big topic right now. It comes out next week. It has the potential to massively expand the addressable playtime for the AA and AAA titles, especially by third-party developers and other handheld devices. Advances in local processes and cloud gaming may finally bring hundreds of millions of players to the PC console games. The GTA pricing, we mentioned that earlier. It could reestablish packaged video game prices after decades of deflation, despite rampant cost growth. AI we talked about. New game genres. I haven't seen too much of that lately. But these are just a few of the things they mentioned in this report. I know this is a ton of data I'm sharing with you guys. But this kind of has me worried, man. I look at this. I ran through this report, and I think Alana Pierce actually did a video on this as well, which got my curiosity to look into the actual presentation. And there's the biggest thing that stood out to me is the fact that we are not the developers' customers anymore, that the investors are. And I'm just curious how long that trend is going to stay the way it is. So that's my spiel. What do you guys think? Discuss.
On that last topic real quick.
Yep.
If we're not the developers' customers anymore, then it's actually good news. It's kind of contradictory because if more investors are going away, they were the ones why we're not the developers' customers. So maybe we will actually start becoming the developers'
That's why I mentioned
that. Since the investors are going away more.
That's my hope. That's my hope that they will revert back.
So yeah, I really don't think I'm worried about that too much. And I'm not worried about the state of the game industry as much. I think just what we're going to be seeing is less releases in general, whether that means mostly from the AAA. And when I say less, I mean like less within a specific year. So like games will take longer to make. Already the example, if it's an indie smaller studio, it takes longer anyways. The AAA studios will probably be cutting back even more or getting less investment. So we may see games taking longer to come out. But I still think there's going to be enough things. Now, again, if you only play one game, that's potentially bad news because Destiny also has been getting less and less content over the years. They've told us a million times that Edge of Fate is less overall content than the Year of Final Shape. I always want more, but we're probably going to be getting less unless something can change. The investors thing is funny because I feel like 80% of investors are always a little behind the curve. I remember a quote a long time ago. I don't know if it was Warren Buffett or what, and I'm not super into stock market or anything like that, but he said, if you're hearing that something's a hot stock to buy, that's already the wrong time to buy it.
It's too late.
It's already too late. So same thing with like this, like AI, if you're an investor going into it now, it's already kind of too late. You should have been one of the people that went in like 3 or 4 years ago if you really want to make the money.
Right.
So same thing with investors on games, unless they can figure out some new thing, stop investing on just the boring stuff, what you think will make the guaranteed money, because you're starting to see here that it's not, the customers are pushing back. They don't just want the boring stuff that's the same price or a little bit more. If something's going to cost more, it has to be dramatically better or different. So investors are going to stop investing in the boring gaming stuff a little bit. And then hopefully there'll be some other new fun thing. But I don't know. AI, I mean, sure, there's investment in there. I'm not saying it's a bad move, but
right.
Investors typically, 80% of investors are always a little behind the curve, in my opinion. They're just going for again, it goes back to the Bungie example. They made this extraction shooter when it was all popular. At least the idea came 4 or 5 years ago. They started making it 3 years ago, whatever. But I feel like it's a little behind. Remember, so many, that was popular. And not saying there's not a market for it right now, but I kind of feel it's like too late. If they wanted a better idea, they should have made. I mean, I want a Destiny 3, but can you imagine they made another game that's similar to Destiny, but totally different as far as like, I don't
Different
know,
story,
maybe it'll still
different
take place in
characters.
space or
Yeah.
something, but a totally different story.
Right.
And if they
Yeah,
made
the
that
same
and it came out of the
feel, a
blue,
different story.
yeah, then it would be amazing, right? That's something new. A whole new game, whole new engine, whole new systems, like everything completely different, but yet it still kind of has like, it feels like a Bungie game. Then that would have been the smart move, I think.
Yep, I agree. Mr. Admiral Nips, we have come to the point in the show where you and I are both polite Midwestern gentlemen, and neither one of us wants to go first and interrupt the other person. But I will ask to you, fine sir, would you like to state your point, or would you like me to go forth?
I'm just saying it's rough living in late stage capitalism. Investors run everything, and it's sure now as they flee away, you'll have more big layoffs. You'll have more, delays on games and stuff like that. But you're talking about $200 billion a year in the industry. Nobody's going away for good, right? They're going to keep putting stuff out. You're going to have people who are artists creating new things. I think gaming will be a part of my life from now until the day I die. So I'm not too worried about it. Especially since I have learned to embrace the indie studios, and there are gems out there that will fill time for $20. Hell, I've picked up Monster Train 2 the other day and played that for a while, and I'll probably play it again. It's just one of those things that Slay the Spire 2 is coming out in the future. That'll eat up another 100 hours plus. It's one of those things that I'm never worried about there not being a game for me to play. There might be not, the same level of, oh my God, this is the golden era of video games where there's 10 games out and I can only play 3 at a time. That's how I ended up missing Red Dead 2, right? I haven't played Red Dead 2 that much. One of the greatest games of all time, and I don't have it, any sort of play on it. But not too worried about there not being something for me to play. So That's where I'm at. It'll suck. It sucks for the people who are in the industry, right? The people who are working in
that's
it,
what I'm worried
and
about.
The people who want to work on it forever, and they've spent their time learning how to do it. They've spent their whole 20s and 30s getting into having a resume that says I can do it, and then all of a sudden there's not a job for them. That sucks. No doubt about that. But for me, in my spot as a consumer of video games and not a creator, I'm not worried.
Okay.
All right. 2011, 2024. That's where this article
Yeah, let me
came from.
let me do this real quick. I'm going to just show you the map. I'm going to show you the graph. I'll show you if you're on.
Okay.
If you're on. Go ahead.
As Todd puts that up there, to give people an idea, that is the Samsung Galaxy S2, the Apple iPhone 4S, the Motorola Droid Razr. That's the release year of 2011. We're talking about release year of Skyrim, Uncharted 3, Portal 2, Dark Souls, Modern Warfare 3, Gears 3. Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was like, think of how many Call of Duty games have come out since Modern Warfare 3, the original one, or since Dark Souls became a thing. Oh, that's a Dark Souls game. The year Dark Souls came out.
Yep.
Okay, so
these are the games. By the way, these
frame,
are the games they put in the report that were a driver too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So over that time frame, investment is down 77% since the peak. What is it up from its lowest point, and what is it up from initial starting point of 2011? Did I say that at all?
I can tell you that. Yeah, they have graphs like galore in here.
I apologize.
Where the real break was in the right. If you look at this graph, we're pretty much status quo until about 2005. I mean, even Amazing Taco King mentions this. That's when gaming really started building up and get some momentum. But it was not until probably 2015, if you're looking at this graph, where it just started going vertical. So 2015 being maybe the crucial time, but they draw the bar here from 2011 to 2020. And if you look at where investors came in, it's right here at the peak. It's right here at the very, very tippy top. This is where investment, private equity firms started coming in and started giving these big, right here, I'll show you. These are the projections that the companies put out that where they thought the gaming industry was going. You can see some of them were very, very, sorry, it's going to be a little bit of a delay when you're seeing it on stream. But these are the projections from a lot of your private equity firms out there that were guiding investors and investing in. This is where most of the investors thought that it was going to go.
But I mean, that's how industry works, is like there'll be peaks and there'll be valleys.
Right.
And you got to look at, like, you know, if you make a projection that's unrealistic versus the actual trend, you know, and then you get upset because it didn't do that. It's like, well, were you smart about what you said, or were you just like 5%?
Right. Yeah.
They always need exponential growth. It can't be like linear or flat growth. It has to be exponential growth.
Yeah. It can't like make sense, or they can't like look at,
and if you look
the long term.
The next graph actually shows what actually did happen from the projections. Yeah. It'll be delayed. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, that looks like it could potentially be like flattening out.
First time it did
or
in
stabilizing,
2023,
or
2024,
growing again.
2022.
Yep. How dare there only be 5% growth?
Exactly. Well, but think about where we came from. Think of 1990.
Right?
COVID.
Yeah.
But again, they're like, investors would be like, we can't have 4.75. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on. The point of me saying that is the industry will go up and down, and there's nothing saying that it's in a downward spiral or that anyone has to jump ship, because like they don't know what the future of gaming is going to be, because a lot of gamers are my generation of gamers. Like there's still a large population of NES, of Atari, of, you know, Super Nintendo, or, you know, whatever, people that are going to become more and more like just more and more open to playing video games, because they're going to be less active. They're going to be older. They're going to be moving around less. They're going to have less friends to hang out with because they're old and friends pass when you get old, right?
Yep.
Less, you know, they're going to go to less things, but they're going to have more time to play video games. And like they're playing video games now. Like I went for a walk with my dogs tonight, and I saw my neighbor, and he was coming in from cutting his lawn, and we're friends. And I'm like, dude, I just got done doing what you're doing. Like I saw him like basically walking around with his blower, like blowing off the grass on his yard, about to be done. He's like, I'm just trying to go in and play some Assassin's Creed before the family gets home. And I'm like, yep. I'm like, enjoy your shower, man. I hope you get, like, you know. So like, point being, they don't know where the consumer base is going to go, because the consumer base is getting older, and people that took a break from games because they're busy with kids or busy with life or busy with pets or hobbies or whatever it might be, those people are going to become more and more prone to sitting around, being less active, being open to having more time to play video games. You know what I mean? So I don't know. They haven't seen enough data from that older generation yet, I don't think.
And keep in mind,
with games,
this report is from a private equity firm. So keep that in mind. It's a venture capital company that came out with this report for its investors. So it's like an investor report.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to comment on the points that you were bringing up.
I got you.
Well, you were, yeah. And then the last thing, game prices going up. I wonder, like, it would be interesting to see how the development of games changed with the media that is used for games changing. like with the trending away from physical copies and discs and even devices that can hold discs and doing everything digital, like it'd be interesting to see that data as well, as far as like overhead and cost to actually make a game and what impact it makes when they don't actually have to create something. You know, they can just push the code.
Yeah. I'm letting other people speak. You want to speak?
I said my piece.
Yeah. But we had a lot of comments, and I just want to share some of these. JD Kent, we can still remember in 2008, Wall Street investors thought about housing. They are just like Vegas gambling with other people's money. Frostbite says something that you may be able to draw a parallel. The PC building market that past 2 years has been on a big pain point as some companies seem focused on contentment versus innovation. With NVIDIA, yeah, I remember that, yeah. Amazing Taco King again, putting D4 and Starfield as representatives of the best in the 70 years makes me question the legitimacy of this market expert. I love both, but they are not really great games for their companies. Well, let me show you the stock prices. I wanted to show you this is major gaming studios. This is the stock price going into 2025. Almost all of them are negative. I've dropped considerably. Nexon 52%, 40% Krafton, Roblox 22 down 22%. Nintendo even is down 9%. EA plus 2%. Guess those microtransactions worked. Capcom was killing it, and Konami is killing it right now as far as stock price. But those are both Japanese companies, so I'm wondering how more of our American-based companies like Ubisoft minus 80% in their stock price. Of course, we've heard a lot of stories about Ubisoft having a lot of issues.
French company, Ubisoft?
Yeah, they're French-based.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard so many stories about Ubisoft having so many issues, and they have so much overhead. I think they're one of the biggest gaming companies out there. Aren't they? They have like 15,000 employees, or at least they used to. Anyway, I just want to make sure that was thrown out there as well. Yep. Okay. Well, thanks guys for that info explosion I threw out there. I thought the report was very interesting, and I was, like I said, I was a little worried about, because we're talking about Marathon, we're talking about Bungie right now, which is our little microcosm when it comes to what we know about our gaming studios out there, and how much. I'm just really curious what Sony is looking at here when they decide what to do with the future of Marathon and Destiny 2 for that reason.